Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2020 and the second part of this experiment where we're seeing what would happen if every team in the Welsh Premier League had a huge amount of money. They've got 300 million a year coming into each and every club for a total of £3.6 billion a year into the Welsh Premier League. So a huge amount of money. Last time we went 10 years ahead. They'd managed to rise up from 114th, they actually dropped to 115th and then came all the way up to 54th. So they've done a good job of raising that reputation. There were a couple of teams, one qualified for the Europa League group stage, and then I think a couple qualified for the Euro Cup 2 group stage. TNS have won the most so far, with Gap Key taking 3, and then most recently Barry Town managing to take the most recent title. But there's not been a lot of money spent. The biggest transfer we saw was just £8.5 million, or was actually quite a lot, £8.5 million. But below that, the next highest was about 850k. So 10 times as much on the most expensive transfer. Today we're going to go 40 years into the future. We'll go 20 to begin with, and then 20 the second time. So we should get a really good idea of how well these teams are doing over such a long period of time. Hopefully we'll see lots of new facilities come in and the teams start to establish themselves in Europe and hopefully break into the top 10 leagues in Europe as well. That's the aim. So if you are enjoying this experiment, drop a like down below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new. But let's jump forward 20 years and see how the Welsh League is looking. So we are now 20 years in the future. We're going to run through the league table quite quickly, starting off with where we left off before. Barry Town winning the league. TNS managed to come back, Gap Key, then TNS again. I really will just push through this until we see something surprising. But it looks like the same three teams dominating. Now, Pennybont were one of the first teams to be relegated, and they've managed to come back quite well. Airbus coming up there, Kefin Druids at the top. And then Airbus do win the first team other than those top three to win a title, and that was only 4 or 5 years ago. Barry Town come back, then Carmarthen have come and won a title. TNS have taken the most recent two. They've been the most enduring team throughout this experiment so far. You can see they actually won 5 in a row back then. They've now got a 3-star reputation. They had 1.5 stars when we left off before, and UEFA Champions League qualification. Now, of course, the higher up the league rankings we get in the Welsh Premier League, and they're now up to 23rd, just behind the Championship and some of the other big teams in Europe, actually above the second tier of the Bundesliga. The higher they get up here, the more European places they'll actually have. And if we take a quick look at the rules, you can see one team qualifies for the first qualifying round, so they've not progressed that too much, but 3 teams go into the second qualifying round of the Euro Cup 2, depending on the Welsh Cup, winner of the Welsh Cup. So they don't have a team going straight into the Europa League. It's a little bit odd the way that has all worked out, but the final here goes into the European places playoff. So they've not managed to secure a group stage entry, even though they're up to 23rd now. They were as high as 21st, they dropped down and have since come back up. But TNS doing a very good job up to this point. If we look at their landmarks going back in time to 2029 where we left up, they did move to a new stadium in 2033, so that should help them with maybe a better pitch for getting into the big competitions, and hopefully more fans turning up as well. Doesn't look like they've... Well, there you go. Youth and training facilities have been upgraded and then upgraded again, so they actually did it twice quite quickly. They had a few failed takeover bids, and then the club was floated on the stock exchange, which might help. They failed UEFA Champions League financial fair pay regulations. I don't know how they've done that with 300 million a year coming in, but somehow they have. So that's quite interesting that that's happened. You can see the stadium's still only got a 1,625 capacity. They are up to 1,200 fans coming through the gates on a regular basis, so and that reputation pretty much 6 times higher than when we started. Bank balance still enormous, 400 million, but the facilities now are becoming elite. They are 16, 15, 17, really up the high end, kind of what you'd expect to see at most Premier League teams, actually better than what you see at most Premier League teams. So they've done a really good job of investing in the club there, but they've not done it in the stadium because they're just not getting the fans through the gate. So having a quick look at the squad here, you can see valuation-wise, 4.5 million, the highest value, but they do have players on 46,500 a week. This French left winger signed for 12 million, so the amount of money being spent has gone up. He left Serie A, where he was actually playing, in the Bundesliga, where he was playing, to go to the Welsh Premier League, which is a little bit surprising. But you can see the draw that they have on some of these clubs. So having a look at the senior squad schedule, if we drop back to the 2029 season, we won't do this for too many clubs because it does take time, but this is probably the most likely team to have done very well, and they did make it into the Euro Cup group stage there. They actually won quite a few games, but they didn't manage to make their way out of the group. The following year, knocked out. Following year, Champions League third qualifying round before getting knocked out, and then out of the Europa League playoffs to Club Brugge. Didn't make it through the Euro Cup playoffs, and again. Then Euro Cup 2, third round, knocked out in the fourth Euro Cup 2 round, and the Europa League playoff, but that got them into the group stage of Euro Cup 2. They did get a win, another win, defeat, draw, and a win. So they may have made it out. They did actually make it out. They made it to the knockout stages here, the first knockout round, being 2-1 at home in front of 3,300 fans, and then beaten 3-1 away. So they didn't manage to keep up that run, but they're making it into the Euro group stage now on a regular basis. 2 wins, a draw, a defeat. They didn't manage to make it out there. But the following year, doesn't look like they made it. Oh, they actually made it into the Europa League group stage here, after being knocked out in the Champions League playoffs by Celtic on away goals. They nearly actually made it into the Champions League for the first time. They had 10 men in both games as well. If they maybe hadn't gone down to 10 men, they could have made it into the Champions League. But you can see in the Europa League, they did manage to beat Zorya, drew with Dinamo Zagreb, but weren't able to make it out of their group despite getting 7 points. So their first Europa League group stage in a very long time. Into the Europa League group stages again, but once more failing to make it out of that group. And then Europa League group stage again. They're doing it on such a regular basis now. And they actually made it through their group as well. That's a huge surprise. Celta Vigo were in there, Victoria Plzen and Olympiacos, and they made it out of their group. Played Real Betis in the first knockout round. 1-1 draw at home in front of 10,000 fans. And then away from home, they took it to penalties. A late equaliser for Real Betis, and then beaten on penalties and not able to make it through. But that is the best run we've seen so far. Another Europa League group stage campaign. Euro Cup 2 was where they ended up. They did make it through the first round, and then in the second knockout round, after being AEK, they were against Toulouse, 0-0 draw, 1-1 away from home, takes them into the next round. They're into the quarterfinals against Bayer Leverkusen, and a 1-1 draw at home, followed up by a 4-0 defeat away from home. But the fact they made it to the quarterfinals is very impressive. The following season, back in the Europa League, but not through the group. Coming up onto the present day now, Europa League not doing particularly well here, out of the group stage, and then not even in Europe the following year, whatever happened there, before going back into Euro Cup 2, and in the knockout stage is beaten by Sporting Lisbon, and in the most recent season, no European football. So that is a sign of how well they've done in Europe. It's not spectacular, but they've definitely shown signs of improvement, which has helped boost the league up to 23rd in the reputation. And with that money still coming in, you can expect they're going to be doing very well in the future. You've got Pennybont here. If we look at their club details, huge amount of finances, £1 billion essentially. But they've not quite got the facilities. Aberystwyth up here as well. They've been a pretty mid-table team, so we won't look at them. But Gap Connors Key, who have been near the top, have now fallen down. So it must be Barry Town who are the other team at the top here. They've been a little bit more over the place since then. Decent money, very, very nice facilities. So they're starting to bring some of those good young players through. And overall, they've been doing pretty well in Europe as well. All of these teams boosting up that coefficient and getting up there. Now, if we have a look at the transfers, going back through the years, if we start off back where we left off last time, 3.47 million being spent, and then 11.5 spent by Carnarvon. TNS, the amount of money now, several teams spending £1 million, so you can see that they're getting that higher reputation. 16.5 million spent on a player from Millwall, but look at that, millions all the way to the bottom of the page. So they are at that point where they're signing a lot of big names, or a lot of good players coming into the team. At least 2 players over 10 million that time, and then most recently £9.75 million. So this really is becoming a very good league. Tim Barrett, the top goal scorer at the moment, 20 caps for Wales and 7 goals. He's actually a player that came through their academy and is banging in the goals, top scorer in the league. So just having a quick look. Actually, we'll look at the Welsh team when we've got another 20 years forward. Let's go 20 more years into the future to bring us up to 40. And rather than look at one club's campaign through Europe, I'll just load up the knockout stages of the different competitions and see if any of the teams manage to go on a good run. So looking at the Welsh Premier League, you can see that there has been a transition over the last 20 years. When TNS were the dominant team, it's actually Penybont who came through, won 10 in a row. Airbus now challenging them, but TNS having to fight for just 3rd place at this point because Penybont have absolutely run away with the title. They now have a continental reputation, 3.5 stars. I imagine they're spending a huge amount of money, £126 million spent, 46.5 million from Fulham there. But you can see, and then bang, huge amount of money going out of the club, 100 million a year at this point. Penybont absolutely smashing it and really doing well in the Premier League. The Premier League itself now up to 11th place. The Scottish Premiership doing very well in 10th, but they're really pushing up there. They were as high as 9th. So looking at those rules at this point, they're getting a team straight into the Champions League group stage, Champions League best place playoff. And what we'll do is we'll start by looking at the Euro Cup 2. And if we go to the stages screen for the previous year and just start off with the first knockout round, drop back to basically 2049 where we left off before. We're just looking for the Welsh flag here to see if there's a season where they had a good run. So you can see TNS knocked out by Copenhagen, and then Aberystwyth actually made it through to the next round where they were beaten by Sevilla, so they did not manage to make it any further than that. TNS knocked out again. Oh, there are actually 2 of them there. Look, Airbus made it through to the next round. So maybe we can start looking at the second knockout stage at this point. You can see they were beaten by Rapid Vienna the following year, though. No Welsh team made it to the second round. TNS did beat Lille, though, to make it into the quarter-finals, where they were beaten by Barcelona, of all teams, 4-1 on aggregate. They actually managed to get a goal at the Nou Camp. That's very nice to see. Following year, no Welsh teams made it through, and then 2 did, Bala and TNS, but both knocked out. Man City destroying Bala Town there. TNS actually did make it through to the quarterfinals, but beaten by Barcelona. Barcelona, the stopping block in Euro Cup 2 for Welsh teams. I don't know why Barcelona are in that competition, but they are. Following year, Airbus knocked out, Carmarthen knocked out, but Bala Town made it through. So 3 teams making it this far now. And Bala Town beaten by Levski Sofia. That's a name I haven't seen in a while. In the quarterfinals. TNS taken out, only team through. And then no Welsh teams. And then 3 Welsh teams. Aberystwyth knocked out, but 2 Welsh teams making it into the quarterfinals. Carmarthen beaten 4-1 by Celta Vigo. And then Mainz taking out Airbus UK. Despite that 2-1 away win in Germany, they were not able to make it through. Carnarvon beaten, and Aberystwyth were beaten there, went a bit too far. So Carnarvon and Aberystwyth both beaten that year, and again Carmarthen beaten the following year. No team through next time, and then Carmarthen beaten once more. They are the team that keeps turning up at this point. Airbus beaten, but I think that the reason we're seeing less Welsh teams at this point is because they're going further in the other competitions. And you can actually see an all-Welsh tie here as Penybont made it through to the quarterfinals, but were beaten by Watford in the next round. And in the most recent season, 3 Welsh teams, Penybont, Carnarvon and Carmarthen, making it through to the quarterfinals, and then both teams beaten in the quarters. So no team managing to win Euro Cup 2 up to the most recent season. Now if we jump up to the Europa League and just have a look at this first knockout round onwards, we don't want to spend too much time looking at these. So starting in 2049, I think it'll be a while before we see a Welsh team pop up here on a regular basis. And you can see it's a long break. One of them did make it through when we were looking earlier. And you can see here, Penybont did make it through, but beaten by Monaco. Not able to go any further. Then Airbus beaten by Red Bull Salzburg. And it looks like this is pretty much the limit for Welsh teams at the moment. Airbus are getting knocked out as well. And then Airbus again by Zenit. Airbus, the team pushing through here. Ooh, who got through here? Penybont got through. They beat Benfica 1-0. A 1-0 away win in Portugal as well. In the following round, though, beaten by Juventus. But even there, 2-1. They held them to a 1-1 draw in their own stadium. A very nice performance. No Welsh teams the following year, though. But that is a new record. Kamala make it through as well to the second knockout round, but they're beaten 6-0 by Villarreal at that stage. Following season, Scottish teams starting to appear in here, but not the Welsh teams. And that is as far as they made it. So a couple of teams making it to the last 16, but no further. And this time with the Champions League, we only really want to have a look at the group stage. I would be stunned if anybody made it any further than the group stage. This might be quite a hard one to track. We'll just have to do a quick skip up and down the page here. Oh, and you can see here TNS did make it through. They only got one draw though in a group with Liverpool and did not manage to make it any further than that. But that's the first time a Welsh team made it into the Champions League group stages. And they did it actually by qualifying because they're not in it the following year. And then the TNS through again, they did actually get a win. Leeds winning the group there. So maybe in other leagues things are turning on their heads a bit. Airbus made it in but couldn't go any further. They were the only team through. And nobody the following year. Oh, two teams in the Champions League group stages here. Airbus finished bottom with no points. Penybont managed to get 2 points at least. But two Welsh teams in the group stage. I was not expecting to see that at any point in this part of this experiment. The following year, Penybont again finishing at the bottom. It'd be so nice if they managed to sneak it through. And they actually have here. Penybont in a group with Real Madrid, Inter Milan and Monaco have managed to make it through. In what season is this? 2060-61. They're in the Champions League knockout stages, and in the first knockout round they were beaten by Barcelona 6-1 on aggregate. But who saw that coming? Absolutely sensational. What a group. We'll go and have a look at their season in a bit more detail later. But you can see Penybont not making it out the following year, and they were the only Welsh team there. Year after that, third place for Penybont not making it through. And then two teams through, Airbus and Penybont, both finishing bottom of the group. Not quite the miracle run we saw earlier, but Airbus there finishing bottom as well. And we're getting close to the end of this now, but Penybont actually make it through again with Napoli, Zenit and Basel. Only 6 points and 1 win, but they've managed to make it into the knockout stages. And Penybont have been beaten 3-1, but they actually beat Atletico Madrid away from home before being beaten 3-0 at home. That is unbelievable in the knockout stages. And the following year, bottom of the group for Penybont there, and then bottom for Carmarthen, bottom for Airbus, and no Penybont. And the most recent season, Airbus at the bottom. So there you go, that is a group run. But what I want to do is drop back to that 60 season, because what a season that would have been for Penybont, making it through their group stage. Was it that season? No, it must have been the following one. It's the 61 season. I can't believe that they managed to make it through in the 60-61 season. I want to see who they got their wins against here. So looking at this, they went straight into the group stage, and then they beat Inter Milan 1-0 at home in front of 8,000 fans. and then they drew with Monaco 1-1, and then beat Inter Milan away from home in front of 76,000 fans, and only 19 of them away fans. So only 19 Penybont fans can claim that they were there to watch the mighty Welsh Giants beat Inter Milan in their own backyard, the Giuseppe Meazza. A 2-0 victory. Unbelievable stuff for Penybont there that they've managed to do that. Now, what we want to do is have a look at the Welsh national side, because quite a few of these teams would have been bringing through good players, and you can see in the world rankings they are now 24th, and been down in 42nd a little while ago. They've really jumped up. This is the year they go from 32nd all the way up to 14th before coming back down, so I assume they had a good run somewhere. If we take a look at this schedule, we'll just kick it off and we can go back to near the start here and just see if they have any good runs through any of the big competitions. Doesn't look like they've qualified for anything for a long time. They did make it through there. They actually made it out their group with 2 draws and then beaten by England 2-1. Not a surprise. But it's taken a while for them to get into the cup competitions on a regular basis. They did qualify for the World Cup and the European Championship. Second round or third round of the World Cup after beating Egypt, beaten by Germany. But they're qualifying on a more regular basis. Part of that might be because it's easier to qualify at this point, but it doesn't look like they've had any super dramatic runs. But we're getting to that point where they had that big spike in national rankings, so we'll see what caused that. In the World Cup, they did make it to the quarterfinals before being beaten 2-0 by Italy. That might have been what did it. No, this is what did it. They beat... they drew with Uruguay, beat Iran 4-0, and then in the second round beat Nigeria in extra time 4-3. They beat Mexico 1-0, Ivory Coast 2-1 in the World Cup quarter-final, and in the World Cup semi-final against England with a 97th minute winner at the Frank Lampard Stadium in England. So it must have been an England World Cup, and they've been beaten. It was at the Vincent Kompany Arena. It's in England, and they've beaten England in the 97th minute. What an England way to lose your host World Cup, and then they're beaten by Spain, having nearly become world champions. That is an unbelievable twist. No wonder they got such a big boost in the rankings. And looking at this national team, you can see why they're doing so well. They've got the likes of Joe Davis, who plays for Watford. He came through at Stoke, actually, so not from any of the clubs we're looking at. This guy from Newcastle actually spent some time at Penybont after coming through the Leeds Academy. Ricky Rowland here. The next one up, he came from Kefin Druids, went to Airbus, spent some time in the US, Al Jazeera, then Leicester, and is currently on loan at Getafe. Tony Hill, currently at Penybont, started out at Cardiff. You can see, look at these huge transfers being spent by the likes of Penybont there. It really is crazy how much things have changed. 46 million being spent, 34, 54, 48. The money has gone crazy in Welsh football. Huge amounts of money being spent. So that's where we're at this point. Some big leaps forward, but no major European success for any Welsh team. Next time, we will probably go another 40 years or so into the future. We'll do it in one go, see if there's been any big dramatic changes. But if you have enjoyed this episode, do drop a like down below. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. And until next time, see ya.